We have covered a lot of ground on this channel when it comes to relaying Switch news. The games and the hardware itself look awesome, but business model elements like the $80 priced games, as well as the $80 Switch 2 editions of Switch 1 games, the accessories being more expensive, the freaking tech demo that should be packed in being something that's paywall behind $10, stuff when it comes to the Switch Online requirements that paywall certain things as well. Physical media involving some elements of like game key cards, where some games will involve requiring a download even if you buy the physical version of the game. The Hall effect sticks not being implemented in the Joy-Cons, potentially paving the road for more drift issues. No achievements, the tariffs potentially forcing prices further up, and Nintendo's statement that basically said if you can't afford a Switch 2, just buy a Switch 1. Basically a Don Magic move that was just a PR disaster for Nintendo. Now, with all that said, I do think the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be a high-demand device. People, despite all of this, will kind of be curious to check the hardware out, to get one for themselves, because the games that Nintendo makes are really good, and the games that they've announced for the Switch 2 have been pretty stellar so far. It's like a pretty good launch lineup. And just the prospect of playing some of these AAA games on a portable machine that is as powerful as it is and that is able to output the kinds of graphics and the kinds of gameplay opportunities that the Switch 2 allows is just too compelling for some folks to pass up. And so now the question remains how Nintendo handles the launch period of the Nintendo Switch 2, because with any new hardware launch, the trouble always is actually getting your hands on one, in large part because scalpers have become so good and efficient, and modern technology, especially with, the ability to make software and bots that kind of take care of things for them, all of that has allowed them to kind of be able to hoard all these limited supply, high demand devices like the Switch 2 en masse and resell them at a higher cost to kind of take advantage of that demand and make a profit. And the thing is, with the Nintendo Switch 2, there's already signs that the scalping situation is going to be pretty bad. If you go to eBay right now and look up the Nintendo Switch 2, look at the listings on offer right now. We're talking about Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders, confirmed listings that go anywhere from $600 to $800, and there are quite a few of these listings. Now, some of you may be asking, how is this possible, Yong, when it was announced that pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 would be delayed from its original April 9th, 2025 live date as a result of the tariffs? Right here is GameStop's announcement where they said pre-orders for Nintendo Switch 2 in the US will not start on April 9th, 2025 in order to assess the potential impact of tariffs and evolving market conditions. The console will still launch on June 5th, but pre-orders have been delayed in the US and in Canada. Well, the thing is that pre-orders haven't been delayed everywhere in the world. In countries like UK and Australia, pre-orders did go live, and some folks are deciding to scalp those and resell them on a worldwide basis, where they will ship the console to the individual who purchases it, regardless of where they're located. So if you go to eBay and search kind of worldwide listings, you'll find this UK listing for, $630, this UK listing for $730, $750 here from Australia, so on and so forth. And this kind of gives you an idea for the price range you can expect. Right here, we have a listing that's as high as $808.50. Just ridiculous. Freaking fuck scalpers. But it is a situation that people will have to deal with. And the fact that we've already been seeing this many listings when the pre-orders have only gone live outside of the biggest markets, like the United States and whatnot, is an indication that this is something you got to be prepared for. Now, one thing to know is that Nintendo is taking some measures to ensure that scalping can be mitigated. So if you go to the Nintendo Switch 2 website right now, one thing you can do is register to buy the Nintendo Switch 2 directly from Nintendo. So right here we have my registration for that. Your registration was submitted on April 2nd. I do have a Nintendo Switch Online account, and that helps in that regard. I bought the Mario Kart World bundle. And so if you go to this website, it's going to essentially be first come, first serve. Now, there's some specific stipulations that kind of help mitigate scalpers potentially being able to take advantage of this situation. So it reads right here that in order to register through my Nintendo store to essentially guarantee a Switch 2 purchase, You have to sign in with your Nintendo account and register your interest in purchasing a Nintendo Switch 2 system and select accessories from the official My Nintendo store. We'll be in touch with an invitation email once it's your turn to shop. Since pre-orders haven't gone online yet, I wouldn't expect this email anytime soon. But then there are more specific stipulations, even if you go through this process, that further ensure that scalpers don't receive these consoles. It reads right here, invitation emails will be prioritized on a first-come, first-served basis to registrants who have purchased a Nintendo Switch Online membership with a minimum of 12 months of paid membership and a minimum of 50 total gameplay hours as of April 2nd, 2025. So what this does is that it guarantees that scalpers don't just create a bunch of Switch Online memberships en masse in order to kind of be able to take advantage of the system. The fact that you have to have a decent amount of gameplay hours into the Switch ecosystem, and the fact that you've had to have the Switch Online membership for a number of months means that it'll ensure that these are legitimate customers who have legitimately played the Nintendo Switch and are fans of Nintendo and the Switch ecosystem. And these are legitimate customers who want the console for themselves and not to, resell. And because so much of keeping track of these specific elements happen on Nintendo's end, on Nintendo servers, it's hard for, if not impossible, for scalpers to, cheat this system, for them to kind of circumvent this, but have to all but hack Nintendo servers essentially and just pull off an immense heist for them to be able to circumvent this. And so scalpers have no leeway when these kinds of measures are implemented. And then in addition to that, it reads right here, once invitation emails have been sent to all registrants meeting the priority criteria, invitations will be sent to remaining eligible registrants on a first come, first serve basis. So they will essentially prioritize the hardcore fans who have enough hours into their original Switch and enough membership months that they've kind of spent money on to prove that they're legitimate people. And I think this is the correct way to do it if they are going to mitigate scalping situation. It'd be nice if everyone, non-scalpers, could get consoles equally. But at the end of the day, the people who desire Switch 2 the most are the hardcore fans, and the fact that they've set a system in place where hardcore fans are pretty much, if they're on top of it, can on some level be guaranteed to receive a console and ensure that it doesn't go to scalpers. That is certainly better than nothing. It is better than the alternative of just letting retailers kind of handle everything. The fact that Nintendo is directly doing this does mean that hopefully a little bit of this scalping situation that we can already anticipate can be mitigated. But it also is worth noting that Nintendo itself will only have so many Switch 2 units in supply. They're shipping a bunch to GameStop and Best Buy and all of the major retailers across the US and all of the major retailers that you'll find in other countries. And that's one area where Nintendo basically has no control over. It's up to the retailers to kind of put a system in place that ensures that scalpers aren't able to buy all the Switch units and Switch 2 units and then resell them at a higher price. But that's an area where, with previous console launches, that's proven to be shaky. Outlets like GameStop and Best Buy and whatnot, they've tried to implement queuing systems and the like, but it hasn't always been successful. Not to mention that their servers just don't always seem to be prepared. They never seem to be prepared for the amount of load that the websites will experience as a result of people flooding the websites because they want, their Switch 2 before the pre-orders sell out. And so, it leads to the website slowing down. Even if you're there on the minute that the orders go live, so is everyone else. And so the website slows down. The, adding to cart and purchasing buttons on the website just get all wonky and don't work as intended. Loading and buffering takes far too long. I have been through the gauntlet of trying to pre-order a highly demanded new piece of hardware. And it's through retailers especially, it's just never fun. It's never ideal. It's never done right. And so I would not place high hopes personally. So if you really want to get a Switch 2 console, I would either, check for in-store availability, which, that's precarious and you will probably have to line up for that in the early days of the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. Or I would do this directly through the My Nintendo store and go through the system that hopefully will work as advertised and won't screw over people in some way, shape, or form. But we'll see how this works. I'll kind of, gauge how my process goes. And if there's any issues with that, I'll report back. But for now, based on what they say how the system should work, I think it is kind of one of the better options that I've seen. But just keep in mind that Switch 2 scalping is real, and do not give in to this. Do not fuel scalpers. It's just if scalpers lose money, then they'll stop scalping. But unfortunately, there are just going to be some people who don't want to go through the process of, having to be on point with like pre-orders and making sure that they're there the second they go live, and are willing to pay the extra money. They just have the money to burn to pay extra to guarantee that they eventually get a Switch 2 earlier rather than later. It's just the prices here are so ridiculous, and just the fact that this is allowed to happen, and the fact that systems still haven't caught up to the point where this stuff can be more mitigated is really highly unfortunate for the people who are willing to shell out the MSRP price point. And the thing is, like, price point is already such a sticking point for the Nintendo Switch 2 because, the console being $450, while kind of expected, it's still on the higher end of what people were hoping for. Folks are hoping for $400, $450, still doable, but, a little more expensive. And then when you consider that games are $80 now, accessories are, like controllers are $10 in the previous generation. When you consider just the extra costs that Nintendo's adding on top of everything, price point is a key factor. And seeing the possibility that Switch 2s will be inaccessible because, the gray market is what it is, and they're going to jack up prices, just really sucks. So this is kind of a bit of like a warning to you all to just be aware that already we're seeing signs of scalping, and hopefully Nintendo and retailers will take the necessary steps to ensure that this is not something that can happen on a level like it happened with a PlayStation 5. The statistics surrounding scalping of that console and how much money scalpers made and what percentage of consoles went to scalpers versus consumers was pretty egregious. So hopefully in the year of our Lord, 2025, we have at this point, advanced enough in methods and technologies and systems to ensure that this doesn't happen at that level. But I suppose only time will tell. In the meantime, though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the Nintendo Switch 2. Are you going to pre-order yours? What do you think about just the games that they've announced for it? And also, what do you think about Nintendo's system for trying to help mitigate scalpers? And what do you anticipate the scalping situation to look like for the Nintendo Switch 2 based on what we know right now? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.